All right, welcome back to another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics. My name is Troy, aka Keep Troy Blue. With me, as always, is Kathy Cannon, aka Cannon's fodder. Ron DeSantis drops out of the presidential race. It is like Kathy's birthday and Christmas and Hanukkah and whatever else, all tied into one. We're going to get into that in a few minutes. Hey, it's my daughter's birthday today. So you may hear her. She's a little, she's a little excited. She's running around the house. She may make an appearance on the show, but happy birthday to my daughter, Emery. She's 4 years old today. So very exciting, very exciting.
She's going to a basketball game, right?
Yeah, we're going to a basketball game. She loves basketball. I think she just loves going to like big events. So we're gonna go to a
She loves
basketball.
the energy of the live events.
Yeah.
Good
We went to a
girl.
birthday. We went to a party yesterday. And it was her friend's birthday party was yesterday, and I don't know. We were just unprepared parents, but they threw a huge party for this little girl. We had to sing to this little girl, and poor Every was like sad. She's like, "Where's my birthday party?" No, I don't know.
Well, she's getting a basketball game. Tell her the whole stadium is her party, and then everybody is cheering for her. That's gonna be
exactly. The Swifties are up in arms because of some AI nude pictures that were making the rounds of Taylor Swift. Those were nasty. I don't know. These people are depraved.
I was gonna say, like, they have so little time on their hands, or so much time on their hands, I guess. Like, this is what they've decided to do with their lives, is to make disgusting pictures of Taylor Swift because she disagrees with you politically on certain issues. Like, that's literally what's happening.
I don't even know if it was political. I just think it was like just weird dudes, like with nothing better to do.
No, of course it's political. It's the MAGA people who hate her, because you've heard like all the Charlie Kirks and the everybody like basically calling her a whore for talking about all of her boyfriends all the time.
Where does this
get? It's the natural progression of trollery.
She's the most like wholesome pop star in history, and they're like really trying to hit the like she's a whore angle. Like, what the fuck are you like? I don't know. These people they don't even have like good attacks on people.
Well, all they do is attack people. Football, remember? Because like every time like Travis Kelce has like a bad play, because that never happens to a professional athlete, right? Like they never drop a ball or anything, right? Like, oh, Taylor's ruining football. Like, Jesus.
Well, I will say the constant cutaways to Taylor are a little annoying, but it is cute. I mean, but anyway, she's super wholesome, and like they're posting these nude pictures. But all it took was, fake nudes of Taylor Swift being circulated online, and now everybody's realizing the danger of AI and deepfaked images. We're freaking out. The White House responding to Taylor's nudes this week with calls to crack down on deepfake images. You don't fuck with Taylor, man. Karma's her boyfriend. You just don't do that shit.
Karma is her boyfriend. That is true. But I think it's also Taylor Swift is like a big appeal to like tween girls, to like young girls, like little girls love Taylor Swift. So like if AI images of that nature are flooding social media and a little girl goes to Google Taylor Swift because they want to see the latest Taylor Swift things, they're going to be bombarded with pornographic images of their like, childhood heroine.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Is disgusting, right? And this is like coming from the same people who are screaming about the depravity of society and how like gays and drag queens are ruining the world. I'm pretty sure it's not gays and drag queens sexually exploiting Taylor Swift because she got kids to register to vote. Like, this is literally like I don't know how
little Swifties Googling Images. That's just absolutely horrifying. But yeah, it's bad.
Imagine your little 11-year-old girl comes and says, "Daddy, what are they doing to Taylor Swift?" That's what you're gonna have to explain, just because you're mad that she's dating like Travis Kelce.
Yeah. They weren't even like good images anyway. I don't know. It's just like stupid, horny dudes in their basement, in their mom's basement, with nothing better to do.
It's pretty gross, is what it is.
Speaking of deepfakes, so there was, and on the theme of these deepfakes, so there was also a Biden deepfake robocall that went out before New Hampshire, in the deepfaked voice of Joe Biden telling Democrats not to vote. It was like, we have, don't waste your vote on Tuesday. Save your vote for November. We need all hands on deck to defeat Donald Trump and the Republicans in November. Save your vote. It sounded exactly like Joe Biden. It was a deepfaked audio.
Yeah.
Even started the call by saying like, "Well, isn't this just a bunch of malarkey or something like that?" Like just pulling out
I feel
Biden
like that should have
phrases.
been a giveaway, like, he wouldn't start a call like that. Like, why would he? What,
But it
I
was
don't
well. First of all, like who sent that and why? I don't.
why? Yeah.
I don't really understand what the purpose would be to like get Democrats to not vote in the New Hampshire primary. We'll cover New Hampshire in a little bit later, but
Yeah.
the motive behind that seems a little off. Like that would have been something to send in November to keep Democrats from voting in the general
Yeah.
election, like give them the wrong date of the election or something.
Well, my
Um,
best guess to that is it's a test run, right?
maybe,
They
yeah,
they have to trial run it. So maybe they were testing the quality of the deep fake to see if it would work, and it was good enough,
right,
but not good enough, like.
right.
So I would say, if nothing else, keep an eye out for more of these. But so I like the response that they're taking it seriously about responding, because there's
Yeah,
intellectual property issues that like, that's a whole episode we could do, but you get the idea.
it's
Like
getting
it,
really scary, and thankfully, uh, these things are pretty easy to spot. I mean, the Taylor thing was obviously fake, but these things are getting easier to spot, and I think people are becoming more educated about what is what is a deep fake and what's not. But still, it's just horrifying. The prospects to our
Mhm.
democracy, and you can see like this Biden thing how it can be weaponized,
Yeah.
against democracy, against the democratic process. In November, giving people the wrong date of the election. They were doing that anyway with robocalls. They've been doing that for years with
Yeah.
robocalls, sending out disinformation about elections. But to actually use the president's voice is pretty scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's national security
yeah,
implications to using that. Like, if
yeah.
nothing else, you don't want him to be able to deep fake a call that gets us into nuclear war.
Right,
You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. Deep fake a call from Biden to Xi or something, saying like the nukes are on the way or something like that. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like deep fake intelligence to justify going to war.
right.
Right? Like, imagine if George W. Bush had AI. He could have just fabricated his Al Qaeda Iraq connection. I'm plugging a deep dive here. Look at me go.
George
But it
W. Bush
also
with
makes a
AI.
point.
That's a fucking horrifying prospect. But yeah, hey, stick around. The deep dive after this show for Patreon subscribers. Continuing the series we started on the War Powers Act. We talked a lot about Vietnam last time. We're going to get into the Iraq War this time. And Kathy was texting me all day yesterday about how pissed off she was because she was going back into the annals of history there to talk about some Iraq War stuff. So Kathy's challenge today is to try and piss me off because I'm so like focused on MAGA and Trump and what's going on right now that I kind of even don't have space in my brain for the Iraq War. So Kathy's challenge is to make Troy very, very angry on the deep dive. So if you're not subscribed to Patreon, head on over to patreon.com/ just buy less coffee. Subscribe $5 a month. You get exclusive access to behind the scenes content, including our deep dive series. So check that out, everybody.
Spoiler, I
Ronnie
will piss
D.
him off.
Go ahead.
I will piss him. I said spoiler, I
Yeah.
will piss him off.
Yeah. It's pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Mhm.
Ronnie D, little D, drops out of the race. Kathy, I didn't even write anything in the outline here. I just figured you'd have some thoughts on this to just go off about Ronnie D
Couldn't have
dropping
happened
out.
to a nicer guy. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we talked about it. The last episode was the day he dropped out. We were 2 hours before
mm,
we
I'm
wrapped recording two
he
hours
just
before he
missed
announced
it.
he was dropping out. So the prick can't even do that right. He screwed us over on the dropping out news too. Dropping out last Sunday before New Hampshire, after a second-ish place showing in Iowa. So Ron DeSantis is out once the great hope to unseat Trump in the Republican Party has completely folded and ran one of the worst campaigns in history. Go ahead, Kathy. He's your governor for a little bit longer, I guess. That he can't
Oh
run again.
God, thanks for that. I just love that if you Google right now worst campaign in presidential history, Ron DeSantis comes right up. That is
Did you
delightful.
really Google that?
Yeah, I can just to prove that
Yeah,
I
that'd been
could.
awesome.
But because there was an opinion in Politico, and usually Politico is Politico, but like it's a pretty widespread opinion at this point. I like the CNN headline. It was DeSantis, once a rising star, ran a presidential campaign filled with missteps and mistakes, which is a very gracious way of saying spent all his money on private planes and high heels. But Yeah, oof, woof. He ran the entire campaign with a sense of entitlement, as though he were heir apparent, because the big money guys got behind him right away because he did the best cosplay of Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan's bastard love child. But like then he had to actually talk to people, and he proved himself to have the personality of lima beans. And
Just a weird guy, man.
like
Who
his
knew?
success in Florida proved more about Florida than him. So now everybody's back to remembering that we have, zombie eating, like face eating zombies and aliens in Miami. Um, like why anybody takes anybody from Florida seriously. And I say this as a homegrown Floridian myself. Like
And
there's a
Kathy's not
reason.
like ashamed to be from Florida. Kathy loves Florida, but
I
yeah,
love Florida,
yeah,
but I love it enough to be aware of what it's like. And no, like, no, we don't produce the best politicians here. Um,
yeah. Well,
we
yeah,
used to once upon a time, but oddly enough, I think the Iraq war killed that too. The
I
Bush
guess.
family,
Yeah,
because remember Bob Graham, he was like the number one guy talking, speaking out, and then lost to Marco Rubio. It's fine. We'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah. Well, you've got some good politicians too.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody did the math, and it was something like DeSantis spent like $6,400.
$6,400 per vote to
Yeah,
lose.
per vote, got like 26,000 votes or something. Anyway, literally the worst run campaign of all time. If you're talking like
Mm-hmm.
dollars and cents, wasted so much of his donors' money.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a DeSantis, yeah, and you're right. Like he had these like major dollar donors backing him for this presidential race, and he just blew it. He completely blew it. I don't know how you could ever bet on DeSantis for anything ever again. The way
Yeah.
he ran that campaign and the way he wasted his donors' money, I think he's
Mm-hmm.
proven himself to be a terrible investment if he ever decides to run again. You got to think he's got 2028 in mind. He's termed out in Florida, can't run for Florida governor again, so he may spend the next 4 years just try to like sort of rebuilding his reputation and his image. But I don't know. Do you think he runs for something else, or do you think he waits till 2028, or what's the next
I
steps for
think
little D?
I think he's done. I
Oh,
think
okay.
he's cooked. I think he did so badly that he doesn't recover from this.
Okay.
Because truly tell me, okay, can you see him being a senator?
I can't see him. I don't know. I don't.
No,
no, because at this point, I don't think anybody's going
yeah,
to back his candidacy. I mean,
right?
I could see him
So then
running
the
for
other
senator. I can't see
mm,
anybody giving him any money for
I was
for
gonna say
doing
who's
it.
gonna give him money for it. Exactly. So like there's no political option for him. So then in politics, what's your other option? Punditry. Can you put him on the news?
Oh
Can
God,
you
no.
make him talk to people? No. Okay, so he's out there. So what's his last option is internet talk show, but then it's the same problem as his, personality, and he couldn't launch his Twitter, his like Twitter launch, so he's not even good at social media. What does he do? Literally, what does he do? He's a laughing
Yeah.
stock. Like, I think his biggest concern is what will happen in his last 2 years in the governor's office. Because you
Okay.
got to remember, he's in Florida. We are not a forgiving folk, right?
Yeah.
We like my dog chases bears and sandhill cranes, right? And if you look up a sandhill crane, you'd know why I'm stressed out, right? Like it's afraid of the vacuum cleaner, but chases a fucking sandhill crane. But like the point is that like we are as stupid as we are vengeful.
hmm
Okay, so we were stupid enough to elect you, so we're vengeful enough to eat you alive. So the Florida legislature gave him a lot of rope, right? Like they basically rolled over, like showed their tummy and said, okay, because when big money made him heir apparent, they played along. So they let him wage war on Disney and kick prosecutors out of office. But all of those things are backfiring. He keeps losing in court. He lost it over and over to Disney. Andrew Warren got his like the Supreme Court basically said, you're violating the Constitution. You can't fire people for disagreeing with you, right? He's got the other one, the Monique Worrell, coming up in the Florida Supreme Court in the next few weeks. Like he keeps losing in court, he keeps losing everywhere. Florida's inflation is driving the nation. The property insurance rates, the like everything is just falling to pieces here. So now he's going to come back after a historically embarrassing presidential run and try to manage the embers of the state he ran into the ground with any authority at all. No, the legislator, they're going to neuter him from the governor's
Yeah.
office. So he's going to sit there as an inept, second, like lame duck governor, right? Like he said, he's termed out. Florida Republicans have been just the state party had to fire their chair for some porn controversies. Their Moms for Liberty groups that have taken over all the school boards are resigning for orgies and all of these things. Like
Moms for
his
Liberty
political,
orgies, baby. Woo!
yeah, like the Ron DeSantis political apparatus he built in the state was crumbling as fast as his campaign did because it was all built on the same house of cards. Like the next 2 years are going to be brutal. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't resign from the governor's office sometime between now and 2026 and disappear into obscurity because,
wow,
like, Casey will leave him. That's my next.
That's my only thought. Like, does Casey just up and leave him now? Like, she wanted to be first lady so bad. I think he was only running for president so that Casey could be first lady. I don't think he cares that much. And like, I don't know. That would just be the cherry on top of his year.
I would say that he was like narcissistically ambitious, and so was she, and they probably got together on this, grand scheme of becoming the Kennedys. And
you have to be good first.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well,
you missed one crucial step in the whole take power scenario, and that you have to actually be charismatic, and people have to be willing to follow you if you want to have power.
Yeah, he took his success on. Yeah, he took his success doing Fox News interviews for 2 years when he was a congressman as proof he could be president. I'm like, I'm sorry. If you do okay with an audience handpicked to love you, you're not going to be president.
I think to your point, I don't even think he can go into punditry now because the right wing hates him. He's seen as disloyal to Trump, even though he licked Trump's ass for the first year of his campaign, only kind of turned on Trump in the last few months. He's seen as this just the fact that he existed at all is seen as this great affront to Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. I can't see him going on Fox. He's definitely not going to go on Newsmax or any of these hard right networks because they all hate him over there. Mm-hmm. The New York Young Republicans, which is just a MAGA front group now, they didn't accept his endorsement of Donald Trump. They called him a below average height governor and an empty suit. Said he was despicably disloyal to President Trump, all this stuff. So MAGA hates him. He's lost all credibility in Florida. You're right. He upped and moved his entire family to Iowa. He hasn't been in Florida for months.
Oh, he pops in for a few hours here and there. But he also at one point had said that he was thinking about renting a house in South Carolina and setting up shop there. And he didn't even make it to South Carolina. He had so much money that he planned on temporarily living in South Carolina. And he dropped out 2 elections before that.
You think he could have stuck it around a little bit longer? I don't know. He just,
he beat Nikki Haley technically in Iowa and still dropped out before her because he knew he wasn't getting another red cent from anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Just despicably bad. Really, really bad. I don't know. I think you may be right. I think he may be done.
Good riddance to him.
Still not sure how that guy got to be governor of anything.
Crystal meth, I think, played a large role in it because Florida.
It's weird that we were so hyped on DeSantis for so long and we're genuinely afraid of the prospect of a DeSantis presidency. Now he just looks like a fucking clown.
Yeah, like I said, DeSantis winning in Florida by the margin he did speaks more to the lack of a Democratic Party presence in Florida than a surging Republican Party presence.
Florida Democrats, you gotta get your shit together, man. Come on, you can't be losing dudes like DeSantis.
Yeah, the party has been a mess for a long time.
It's not like you're Mississippi, dude. You're Florida. There's a ton of Democrats in that state. It's technically still a swing state. Come on.
Yeah, you would think. But the best Democratic candidate we could come up for governor was the former Republican governor, Charlie Crist. So
you had to dig out a Republican to run towards the Democrat.
My point, and when you say oh, Ron DeSantis won by such margins, to the national press corps, that sounds like something. But to those of us living here, they're like, no, he beat Charlie Crist, who happens to be governor during the housing market collapse. Right. Yeah. So Charlie Crist is Florida's George W. He was the one standing there when the ass fell out of the economy. He's not coming back for anything. And that's who the Democrats put up. And he was running against Nikki Fried. And I tried to back Nikki Fried, remember? But she didn't stand a chance because the state party is fucking stupid.
Yeah. Republican Party chairs, hosting Coke orgies at his house, but they're still
winning in Florida. Democrats are too busy surfing on the beach.
Let's talk a little New Hampshire. Let's give some analysis of New Hampshire. That was this week, New Hampshire primary. the first in the nation primary in New Hampshire. I find all this so, as I'm getting older, I find this whole process just so friggin' annoying. Like
It is very
the fact
silly.
that DeSantis moved his family to Iowa to try and win
know.
Iowa is just baffling to me. We've got to
I
figure
know.
out a way to not do this kind of stupid crap anymore. We all got to kiss Iowa's butt. We got to kiss New Hampshire's butt. Anyway, first in the nation primary required in their constitution. New Hampshire has to be the first primary in the nation, even though the Democratic Party basically decided that we weren't going to do that anymore. We're going to move to South Carolina as our first primary. New Hampshire says fuck you to the Democrats,
We're
hold the
doing it
primary
anyway.
anyway. And Joe Biden is not, the incumbent president is not on the ballot because New Hampshire had to throw a tizzy fit. Biden wins anyway, dominates. I can't even remember this dude's name. I keep whatever his name is, Dean Phillips.
Yeah.
Congressman Dean Phillips, who's primarying, was on the ballot. There was like 29 people on the ballot. If you include people like Vermin Supreme or whatever.
I love that Vermin Supreme is back, by the way. Can I just say that
Vermin Supreme
makes my little government
president.
teacher's heart. The kids love some Vermin Supreme, man. Everyone gets a pony is a selling point to 17-year-olds.
Biden beating Dean Phillips by like 30 points in a write-in campaign. Biden wasn't even on the ballot. The Democrats scrambled the last few weeks to put together this write-in campaign to write the president's name in, because it wouldn't look good if Dean Phillips won the New Hampshire primary against the incumbent president. Biden won anyway, even by 30 points. Even like people had to write his name in on the ballot. So embarrassing for Dean Phillips. Embarrassing for New Hampshire, who like just couldn't, and had to throw a tizzy fit over it. But yeah.
Well, to be fair, it is in their state constitution, so they would have been violating laws, I suppose, if you want to be fair to them. It is a stupid rule to have in your constitution, so like we could just fix that, but whatever. Don't know the complexity of New Hampshire's constitutional amendment process, but
it
I
just
know a
gives
lot.
them
I don't know
clout.
everything.
It just gives them. I think it gives them clout. It does give them clout. I mean, clearly, but like, come on, man, this is just silly.
But it goes back to like founding father times, like live free or die. Like it's literally in that lane of founding father fuckery. But who cares? Whatever.
I'm torching we have a huge fan base in New Hampshire, and I'm just torching our New Hampshire fans. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe who knows?
Wouldn't it be funny if we did? Hi, New Hampshire. My aunt lives in Vermont, though, so I think there's some.
We're huge in Iowa and New Hampshire, Kathy, and South Africa.
New Hampshire is where smart massholes live, so they don't pay taxes.
That's on the Republican side. That's on the Democratic side. The Republican side, interesting results. Trump wins, but not by that much. His team was predicting a 30 point victory, which is basically what Biden got. But his Trump team was predicting a huge victory over Nikki Haley. It's down to just Trump and Haley now after Little D dropped out. He only won by like 8%, maybe 10% when the final results get in. We talked about it last time. New Hampshire was sort of primed for the Nikki Haley Republican. If he wanted to knock Nikki Haley out of the race, and he could have, if he had completely destroyed her in New Hampshire, would have proven that Haley can't even win in a moderate Republican state. Instead, he underperforms. He has performance issues, clearly, and couldn't knock Haley out of the race. Didn't underperformed. Couldn't finish, if you will. So Haley stays
You're just
in.
making it work.
Yeah, he's just
trying not to giggle like a 12-year-old.
Just ran a flaccid campaign, like just it just couldn't do it. Just couldn't finish.
Lord.
But yeah, he had to destroy Haley in the race. He didn't do it. So Haley stays in the race, lives on to fight another day, going to South Carolina, her home state. Great messaging on her behalf, heading home to South Carolina. Good work. Who knows? I mean, she's energized. Her donors are sticking around because of this New Hampshire thing. Like we said, Trump had to just trounce her in New Hampshire, couldn't get it done. So Nikki Haley lives to fight another day. Her donors are sticking around. Anti-Trump Republican coalition now coalescing around Nikki Haley, where they were around DeSantis before. So we'll see. It's going to get interesting. She's definitely going to lose in South Carolina as well. But again, if she doesn't, South Carolina is much more of a Trump state than New Hampshire. So if it's close in South Carolina, Trump's got real problems, man. So
He's
Yeah.
got real problems, but you'll also kind of notice that the worse things go for him in court, the worse things go for him in elections.
It
And
is very true.
it's going to be kind of interesting to watch to see if the primaries are reflective of his judicial outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Because I know this is again later in the outline, right? But $83.3 million speaks louder to Americans than a 51-49 election win. Like Americans seem to understand
It's true.
lawsuit payments. Like, how bad was it? Well, he had to pay $83.3 million. That breaks through like a propaganda veneer, if you will, because that's how we understand the
Yeah.
world as Americans. Everything's in money. So that will be fun to watch. I think his reaction to New Hampshire is the loudest and most telling thing about
Oh yeah.
this because
Oh yeah.
um, he had, like, Nikki Haley, I think, characterized it correctly with a tizzy fit, I think is what she called it, or
Yeah.
a temper tantrum or something.
He
That
was.
is,
I didn't clip it for the show, but yeah, he was a mess that night. He
he
looked like a
kind of,
jackass.
yeah. And I think because he's him, the fact that it was Nikki Haley and not Ron DeSantis, the fact that it was a woman who beat him,
Ah,
because there was a particular animosity to Hillary Clinton because how dare a woman, right?
right.
And it's the same with Nikki Haley. Not only like a woman, but a woman he once hired. Hmm? Like,
Yeah,
that's not
his former
appropriate,
employee kind of thing.
right?
Yeah.
So this is
Which doesn't help
this
his attacks on her, by the way. Like, she was
correct.
good enough to be his ambassador to the United Nations, and all of a sudden he's talking about how she doesn't know anything about foreign policy. It's like, why the hell did you put her
Correct.
back her the
I
ambassador
thought
to the
you only
UN then,
hired the
dude?
best people there, Donnie, right? So, um, yeah, if he wasn't worried, he wouldn't be melting down. Like, if I wasn't intimidated by somebody, I wouldn't be paying a lot of attention to them.
Yeah.
So the fact that he is paying a lot of attention to her is telling, right?
The the Nikki Haley doesn't stand a chance messaging is all being rolled out, just trying to get her
Mhm.
to drop out. I think she's completely energized by this New Hampshire thing. I don't. Now they're talking. Yeah, Kathy. Now they're talking like just nixing the primary and just going to like a direct nomination. I mean, that's how spooked they
Yeah, I
are
saw
by
they did that.
Nikki Haley.
Mhm.
Trump this week
But
said he didn't want that. He wanted to win like the old fashioned way or whatever. Um,
only when people reacted to it the way, of course, they reacted to it because it's so freaking pathetic.
wouldn't that be just amazing? That would just be the cherry after they've been attacking Democrats
For
for
canceling
years
elections,
over
yep.
kind of scuttling Bernie Sanders in back
Mhm.
rooms. If they just go, if the Republicans just collectively come together and just say like fuck the primaries. But
Yep,
this is why New Hampshire wants to be number one because shit always goes down, in February and March, and like the ones after that don't even really matter. So
that is pretty true, but I
yeah,
think it's, like, also funny, he has barred anybody who henceforth gives any money to the Nikki Haley campaign is
yeah.
barred from the MAGA movement,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
that whole
what
oh
does
god,
that
and
even mean, first of all? But also, like, you're literally, you can't come to my birthday party if you talk to Nikki. Like, that's
yeah.
essentially the level of politics we've devolved to here. You can't come to my sleepover. Like,
Just yeah,
okay.
we don't want you. Yeah,
Oh,
we don't
darn.
want you. We don't want your support if you support Nikki Haley. We don't want your
Yeah.
voters. You would say he doesn't need Nikki Haley voters to win in the general election. Like
Oh,
bold
stupid.
strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him. Just like shitting away like the rest of the Republican Party. It's what's going to be a very very tight general election in November. He's just liquidating that support. He could, if he's the presumptive nominee, the what you do when you're the presumptive nominee is you begin the healing process and try to bring everybody in the party back together.
That's not
Not this
him.
guy.
Not him. But the
Yeah.
question is like, we know she'll stay in through South Carolina, most likely, right? Because I kind of feel
Oh
like
yeah.
that's why she's staying in, because dropping out before your home state is a little, like
Yeah.
cringe, I think is how the kids would describe it. But I like, do you honestly think she'll stay longer than that? Will she make it to Super Tuesday?
It depends on South Carolina. I think
I guess.
she's state by state at this point. I think
I
she would have
suppose.
dropped out again. I think she would have dropped out of New Hampshire if she had a terrible showing in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
She knows
fair.
she's not going to win. She is banking on staying in as long as she can reasonably do so because of what you said, because of the court cases.
Yeah.
The worst it gets for Trump,
Mm,
outside of the political arena, the better it is for somebody like Haley. By the time we get to the Republican convention in the summer, he may be in jail, or he may just be completely overwhelmed with his court stuff that she could make. Presumably, if she wins, if she has, any slate of delegates whatsoever at that convention, you could have a brokered convention. You could have Haley supporters saying, the argument at the convention then becomes what's good for the party. Is it good for the party to nominate some guy who's about to be in jail?
I'm
So
telling
if
you,
she's, I think she's
1968 playing out in front of us.
I think she's trying to amass as many delegates as she possibly can, stay in as long as the money holds out, as long as her donors will stay behind her. She'll stay in, because her best bet is just to play the long game against Trump in case he's just completely destroyed by this court stuff.
Yeah, like that's her best move. But my question is, how long does because we know she's the billionaire class. She's the political establishment. She's the anti-Trump establishment candidate. That's who she is.
Yeah.
So the real question is, how long are they willing to throw money after stopping Donald Trump?
As I think as it becomes, as long as the possibility is out there, they'll throw money at anybody.
Yeah.
I think but yeah, again, it depends on, it's state by state. If she has a terrible showing in South Carolina, she may drop out. If it's close again like this, I think she'll stick in. But the thing for the Trump messaging is she's going to lose South Carolina, and they're just going to hit her hard on losing her own state. That's going to be the big thing that they're going to.
Yeah, because my thinking is because, like I've said for a while, like this to me is playing out the way 1968 did, right? So if I'm a big money donor on the Republican ticket, I think it's more cost effective, perhaps, to let her drop out and then do some of that behind the scenes, like delegate counting. So like, say, like the hypothetical, if this brokers, can I count on you? Can I count on you? Working it out behind the scenes in the shadows, if you will, which I understand sounds very political thriller movie, but this is kind of how things work when political parties are dying. So like, let Trump do what he does, right? And then you can come as like a savior candidate when the Trump supporters are all sad that their hero is in prison. Just be like, well, the Republican Party from the embers of Trump. Like, you could start building the foundation for that, but it would require long-term political thinking that the Republicans no longer have, because all their long-term thinkers are 90 and they've bred a clan of mindless lemmings to replace them. So
yeah, the Republican intellectual class has kind of gone the way of the dodo there.
W, I think
there used to be a there was a sizable sort of Republican intelligentsia back in the day. Not really anymore.
Yeah, except the problem is that their goal was to brainwash the masses to never question them, and it took longer than they hoped. So now the brainwashed masses are replacing them. So instead of Newt Gingrich's, you have Marjorie Taylor Greene's, and that is what you deserve.
Marjorie Taylor Greene continuing with like the weird, creepy, genocidal language. I think she was drunk, by the way. At the
that's the only excuse I will accept.
That I'd be like, New Hampshire. She was at the New Hampshire after party, being interviewed by her boyfriend, because she only ever does interviews if it's her boyfriend's the one that's interviewing her on RSBN. But just completely hammered. She's like, Nikki Haley's a stupid bitch. She didn't say that, but she, basically she was just like going after Nikki Haley.
Votes or something, right?
And she said, like, any Republican that backs any Republican that backs Nikki Haley will be eradicated. ... from our movement. So I don't know. Continuing with the
literally use the words eradicated.
Yeah.
That's
and she'd call Haley a bitch, but she did talk about how stupid she was. She was like, Nikki Haley's so stupid. Like, Jesus Christ, woman. Oh my God.
Fantastic. That's super good to
hear. Know that you want Donald Trump to sleep with you. Just don't tell your boyfriend, as he's
so
interviewing you.
That is so gross. Oh God.
So I mean, that may be another, they may be thinking about the convention, which is they're trying to just, I mean, I don't think they are. I don't think they're thinking long view. I just think they're just spooked a little bit. We're talking about this sort of just quick nomination process and just skipping the rest of the primaries. But again, way to just alienate your grassroots, your rank and file people that are putting these primaries together, to just be like, nope, screw you.
Yep.
They had a chaotic. We maybe talk about this a little next time, but they had a chaotic meeting of the Arizona. Oh no, this is on the agenda later. The Carrie Lake thing. They had a chaotic meeting at the Arizona Republican meeting yesterday, actually. And at the end of the meeting, they actually took a vote to declare Donald Trump the nominee from Arizona. And there was like these tweets coming out of these behind the scenes people that were tweeting out this stuff. They're like, did we just nominate Donald Trump? We don't even really know. Like, we're not, did we just like cancel the Arizona primary? Well, how does that work exactly? So I don't know, just chaos. It's pure chaos.
That is a wow. That's a wow. That is a wow.
Yeah. Want to run the country, they can't even run their own party. Some interesting exit polling from New Hampshire. Exit polls in New Hampshire revealing that 64% of New Hampshire Republicans do not consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. 64% said
Wow.
no, they are not MAGA. 67% said they don't support a national abortion ban. 43% said they would feel dissatisfied if Trump wins the nomination. 43% of Republicans in that primary. 47% said that Trump would not be fit for the presidency should he be convicted of a crime. Again, there's that 50% number. Trump's support basically halves. And this is what Nikki Haley's counting on, man. I'm telling you, this is like, don't discount this. 50% of Republicans consistently have been saying that if Trump's in prison, they have to nominate someone else. So I don't know.
See, those are very telling numbers to me. Now, I will say this with a full like acknowledgement that they're exit polls.
Yeah, you have to
So
take them with a
grain
grain
of
of salt.
salt.
Yeah.
It's New Hampshire, so grain of salt. But these seem to be at least within the range of kind of numbers that we saw coming out of like Ohio and Kansas and stuff when they went in for those special elections, right?
Yeah.
And like, if this doesn't tell you that they have lost the culture wars that they are fighting, they have lost on abortion very clearly across the board. And if the MAGA movement is being rejected, the MAGA movement is representative of like the stupid anti-woke, anti-CRT, like all of that bullshit is wrapped up in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very clear sign that that is not a popular national issue to run on. That might get you your little fringe voters here and there, but the louder you make that, the less appeal you have. And the fact
Very bad.
They're going the other way with it. It reminds me of so much of 2012. Remember they did their little election autopsy and they're like, well, we either have to double down on voter intimidation or appeal to a broader base. So what did they do? Instead of appealing to a base, they double down on fascism. They're doing the same thing now. Like, very, very clearly, the numbers are telling them this isn't popular. So the only way this works is oppression. And they go, I can oppress. Like, other way. Like, turn the other way, man. Turn the other way. No, you're not going to turn the other way? Well, I guess it's Uncle Joe then.
Oh, boy. Yeah, it just the enthusiasm at this point. It's all about enthusiasm. So on one hand, you have the Democrats. You have Biden winning in a write-in campaign, trouncing his opponent in a write-in campaign. On the other hand, you have 64% of New Hampshire Republicans saying they do not consider themselves part of the MAGA movement. I think enthusiasm in the 21st century elections, enthusiasm is everything. I think Trump's got real problems here, man. I think there's a crack in that foundation, in that MAGA foundation. It's just being played out. So
I think
we'll see.
You know how we were talking about how the Biden campaign should be most worried about a Nikki Haley nomination because she's the one that stands the most chance of beating him nationally, truthfully. That flipped the other way, and I've heard whispers of this coming out, like, brief comments or allusions to it. But like, would Haley's voters be Biden voters? Because that would make, and if we're still in the land of we are witnessing political realignment, which I think is safe to say we are definitely still there, then, and I want everybody to be aware of how painful this is about to be for me to say, but Biden might be able to pull in some Biden Republicans the way Reagan pulled in some Reagan Democrats, right? Because it is another one of those sort of pivotal political moments where you have kind of disaffected voters in a political party that they no longer feel at home in. Because the Democratic Party, in all fairness, was a hot fucking mess throughout the 70s, right? Like just, I'm going to go ahead and concede from 68 through 92, I'd say just a bubbling pile of messiness. And even in 92, it was just sort of like in a cast and following Republicans along the road. But like, if that's what's happening to Republicans now, right, taken over by a fringe group and the rest of it just a fucking mess, those New Hampshire Republicans rejecting MAGA, those New Hampshire style Republicans, because those kind of Republicans exist everywhere, just in smaller numbers. It's just like New England type Republicans are all over. And if all of those style Republicans vote for Biden just because he's the only other option, that
Yeah.
creates like the foundation for the political realignment, where the Democrats, probably stay sort of a center right party, but allow a progressive wing to break off, where those progressives in a less toxic political climate could pick up some of the populism left over from Trumpism and show them how to be productive with your populism policy, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is going to be something really interesting to watch from the exit polls coming out. Like, if that is a consistent trend you see as the lawsuits keep going against Trump, will you start to see those moderate Republicans polling toward Biden as it becomes inevitable it's this or that, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it won't happen till after the convention, because if the convention brokers, then it's a whole new ball game, right? But I don't
I
know.
just,
That's what I'm
you
looking at
have, yeah, I mean, it's just I didn't leave the Republican Party. The Republican Party left me.
right now.
Like, quite literally. I mean, if you have people, if you have Trump and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that if you are not MAGA, you are not a Republican, and then you have these exit polls saying that 64% of of Republicans in this primary do not consider themselves MAGA. Again, you're not building a party. It's
You're culling a party at that
yeah,
point.
you're calling a party. You're ripping the party apart. You're going to have a lot of Republicans that are just not down with that. Even if they like Trump, even if they're supportive of Trump and think he'd be, even if they plan on voting for him,
Yep.
to say that if you are not, they're just gatekeeping their own movement to say if you're not an ultra MAGA, you're not a Republican. So
Yep.
I don't know. They've already lost this. They've already lost a huge chunk of people. They've lost. There's a lot. The never Trump Republicans
Yep.
are not just sitting it out. They're backing Biden now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and they don't
yeah,
have the luxury of losing a lot of votes. Like they love to point to the huge electoral victory that Donald Trump had, but like he won those states by small thresholds of votes, like very small number. What was it, like 44,000 votes decided 2016 in the end?
yeah,
That's a small number. Like, I understand the national vote looked different, but like the
yeah,
state by state, like tiebreakers. So if they alienate enough people in enough places, which will be the swing states, which will be where those type of Republicans are,
yeah.
hi, here's the rope. Hang yourself, Marjorie. Like,
People just the 20% of Americans that are just in love, that are in the cult, that are in love
mhm,
with Donald Trump, are going to love him no matter what. They'll jump off the bridge with him. But
mhm,
they're deluding themselves if they think that that's any more than 20-25%. I mean,
correct.
there are Republicans now who are remembering the chaos of the Trump presidency, and even if they like him, even if they
Mhm.
like his policies, they're not down with that. A
Yep.
couple of other stories. Speaking of, so yeah, Trump now owes E. Jean Carroll $83 million in defamation suit, 83.3 actually. Defamation suit against E. Jean Carroll, Carroll against Trump. So Trump previously ordered to pay Carroll $5 million from the last defamation trial. This one was $18.3 million in compensatory damages, $65 million in punitive damages. Defaming her, trying to destroy her, still doing it, still trying to destroy her reputation.
Yeah.
After he was found liable of raping her. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Like, all he had to do was shut up, and he couldn't. And the question is
Yeah.
will he be able to shut up now? Because he's appealing it, but he has to front that money to appeal it. And I don't think, first of all, I don't think he has that money to front it, which means that his lies about his assets are about to go up in smoke, right? Because if he has to start, either liquidating assets or borrowing against them, then you'll have to do a
Yeah.
financial assessment to borrow against it. And if we find out everything's like loans to the hills, Mr. I'm a billionaire, that's why you should elect me president. If he has to declare bankruptcy because of this, imagine he has to declare bankruptcy because of this civil file against E. Jean Carroll, because he can't find $83 million whilst claiming himself a billionaire.
He's
Done.
just gonna have
Done.
more. He needs more like small dollar donations
Mhm.
from his supporters there.
You know what my
Trump.
favorite bit about it is, though, is the memes. Like, the Carol Lago is my favorite.
Yeah,
Carol
that's
Lago.
good. E. Jean Carroll Tower in Manhattan.
Yeah, Eugene Carroll under new management.
It's just so stereotypically Trump and gross, though, the way they're going after this woman, saying that she's too ugly to rape. And then, but
This
also
one's talking about
simultaneously
sex
trying to
symbols.
like victim shame, talking about her sex life, digging through, everything she's ever said about sex, trying to make it seem like she, her being raped was her fault. It's just classic
Absolutely.
attack the victim type mentality, classic abuser behavior, rapist behavior. So it's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So he's gonna have to pony up for that one. Kate Cox will be a guest at the State of the Union. She's accepted the invitation from Joe Biden to be a guest. Kate Cox had to flee state of Texas, made headlines, had to flee the state of Texas to receive an abortion after first suing the state. Had a judge rule in her favor, saying that the abortion was necessary to save her fertility and perhaps her life. Texas appealed, went to the Texas Supreme Court, and ultimately was ruled against her. She fled the state, got an abortion after being to the ER 4 times with fluid loss and severe cramping, and basically her uterine lining was rupturing. She had to flee the state to get an abortion to probably save her life. Just sort of proving that the exceptions for the life of the mother is just ridiculous. Doesn't make any sense. It's too vague. So she will be a guest at the State of the Union. Interesting call. Good call on the from the Biden administration to highlight that. Speaking
Those are
of
the
Texas,
stories that will win them that issue.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they're already winning the issue, but those are the stories that'll get people to the polls,
For sure. Yeah, it's just a terrible, terrible story, and just couldn't be worse. And also involving Ken Paxton, Attorney General of Texas, who's just a fucking scumbag.
He is indeed.
And he was sort of at the center of that as well. Texas, just a horrible space. Speaking of Texas, God, we're just shitting all over everybody today. Speaking of Texas, Civil War. Civil War is imminent. Apparently, if you're in Texas, you may think that. Supreme Court ruled 5-4 with the Biden administration to remove the razor wire at the border. They want Texas to stop lining the border along the Rio Grande River with razor wire and sharp objects to prevent asylum seekers from coming across. Supreme Court ordered that removed to help Customs and Border Patrol do their job, which is to make sure these people aren't dying on the border. They do actually, part of their function is to actually ensure that these people are safely crossing, even if they have to apprehend them. But mostly these people are turning themselves into Border Patrol because they are asylum seekers. The razor wire was hindering Border Patrol's job of finding these people, helping them cross safely so they can be processed as asylum seekers. Abbott, defying the ruling from the Supreme Court, goes in and puts more razor wire in, activates the National Guard to the border. 25 other Republican states sending National Guard to the border in support of Texas. Trump encouraging more states to defy the Supreme Court order, and Civil War starts trending on the internet in anticipation that the National Guards from these Republican states are going to get into some kind of conflict with the United States military over this razor wire. Not going to happen. Biden's not going to be tempted.
I just to point out one small little thing that all of these people seem to have forgotten is that it's the National Guard. So each state is given a National Guard that can be federalized at any point. So if Greg Abbott sends them to the border to do his bidding with one phone call, they literally turn around. Like, wait, we're supposed to listen to the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military. And if I don't, I'm court-martialed by the United States military. And I don't care how scary Texas is. The United States military is worse. So it's cute. It's cute, but it's cute.
Yeah, Abbott invoking, and this, I really want to get your thoughts on this one, Kathy. Abbott invoking Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, invasion, about invasion, states' response to invasion, the right of states to defend themselves against invasion. I mean, in context, let me know your thoughts on it, but in context, state militias defending off a foreign invader in a period where the United States military couldn't respond very quickly. It would have taken weeks and months to get the U.S. Army, the federal military, to respond to an actual invasion. So you had the Constitution enabling states to respond with their militias. Different scenario than what's going on at the southern border. It's not exactly a foreign power invading with their military. But what are your thoughts on Abbott invoking Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 about invasion?
I feel like Abbott doesn't understand the Constitution because the
Yeah.
Constitution is very clear on whose authority. And this is the thing that scares me the most about it, is that the supremacy clause was only upheld by this Supreme Court with a 5-4 vote. Right? Because regardless of what he's saying, what states can defend their borders, it's for the reason that you said, right? But the federal government has the authority. So the federal government will grant states authority to, with their militias, defend the borders, but only until the federal government acts, right? If the federal government claims authority over those borders, guess who has the authority? The federal government. You know why? The supremacy clause. Because if Texas has a state law that says I get to do X, Y, and Z, but the federal government says I get to do A, B, and C, guess which one always wins? The supremacy clause. It's right there. So it doesn't matter, because if he says I have a right to defend my state borders, you're right. And the federal government has a right to defend their federal borders, and your state border isn't as important as our federal border. So fuck the fuck off, Mr. Abbott. Get out of our way.
A lot of calls from Democrats to do that, to take over the Texas National Guard. He's not going to do that either. He's not going to be baited into that. But yeah,
I mean, he might have to.
Well,
Because
yeah.
like I'm looking at this from the point of view of somebody who grew up in South Florida in the 80s and 90s, when Cuban refugees were like hitting the beaches on a daily basis, and we used to have these battles as to what to do about them. And this is why, like, I always roll my eyes at these immigration arguments, because, like, wow, they haven't been the exact same thing for 40 years or anything. Wow, I'm glad we've made a whole lot of progress, not only on our policy but our talking points. It's the same thing all of the time. You have like, these are people fleeing horrible situations that are being used as political pawns to win cheap political points for people who simply want power over everybody's personal decisions, and they're exploiting poor, starving, asylum seeking war refugees to do it. It's disgusting.
It's pretty
It's been
well.
disgusting.
And they also don't have the best track record, busing these people to Martha's Vineyard. I guess was that Abbott or DeSantis that did that? I
That
think that
was
was DeSantis.
DeSantis.
But Abbott's been sending migrants to Chicago and New York and all this. So not as a political stunt. So not the best track record. Also, why is it only Texas that ever has these issues? There is a significant problem going on the border, but California, Arizona, New Mexico, also border states dealing with the issue. Texas gets billions of dollars from the federal government in aid to support their border. They don't even really know where that money has gone. There's no, in the Abbott era, in the Abbott Rick Perry era, there's no there hasn't been good public accounting of where their border money or how their border money has been spent. Meanwhile, they're running a $36 billion state surplus. So they're taxing their people, not spending it, but then begging the federal government for aid for the border. And there's no real good public accounting of how that's going. Now they're activating the National Guard and trying to pick fights with the federal government and the Biden administration, stoking these ridiculous claims of civil war and Texas independence. It's revived that whole fucking Texas independence movement. I don't know. It's just, and then of course Trump's got to get involved in all.
Well, to me, like, my brain loves to find the Republican corruption and the obvious Republican corruption, just because that's what I do. But to your point about how they receive billions in federal dollars to defend the border, are the state that has the worst of the border crisis, despite getting the most funding, has the least accountability for how their funding is used, and is using the issue to stoke political tension and split the country apart. Add to that Trump's remarks kind of fueling the fire, and it also seems as though that Texas could potentially deserve a DOJ investigation as to whether or not they're intentionally withholding the distribution of federal funds to intentionally exacerbate a border issue for their political gain,
for political
and
purpose.
stoking, treasonous talk of civil war, which means not only are you robbing from the American taxpayer, but you're doing so for the sake of overthrowing the government. And since we're in the mood for insurrection trials,
I mean, this is the administration with Ken Paxton. I mean,
I know, that's what I'm
is it
saying.
that much of a stretch to think that Greg Abbott is corrupt? Come on, man. It's Texas, for fuck's sake.
It would not surprise me in the least that they are intentionally making their border situation in their country or their state, look worse than it is, so they can use it to make the country's immigration problem at large look worse, so they can use it to point to Democrats being bad. Because there's an issue, there's a bill that could pass right now, and Republicans are going to kill it so they can run on the
Exactly.
border. And that, to me, tells you all you need to know.
They
don't really
they
care.
don't have abortion is killing them.
Mhm.
The economy is getting better. The economy is actually booming, but in terms of
Mhm.
American perception, it's
That's
getting
all they've
better.
got
They're not
is
going to
the
be able to run
border.
on the economy. All they can run on now is the border and immigration. If
Mhm.
they solve that now, months out from the election, they're not going to have a single
Mhm.
goddamn issue to run on. They're intentionally scuttling these border negotiations. Trump keeps
Mhm.
sabotaging the
Mhm.
border negotiations with his posts on Truth Social. You know, again, just absolute hold over the Republican Party, calling people rhinos who work with Democrats to get a solution done on the border. It's all just political garbage. They're stoking this as an issue. Is there an issue at the border? Absolutely. But it requires, you know, thoughtful legal solutions. It requires an act of Congress to deal with it. It's not beyond our capacity as a nation to solve that problem. And it certainly doesn't have to result in violence or civil war.
Mhm.
But they're
I know.
stoking it. They're stoking all this political division
Mhm.
because they believe it helps their chances in 2024 of winning an election. And it's
Right, but
despicable.
it won't help their chances because, like, think about what they're actually defending here. They're defending putting razor wire in the
Yeah,
water to cut open men, women, and children fleeing poverty, right?
right.
So, like, if this is the last issue you have to run on, and your position is that we should be able to let people die and drown in the water rather than
And
come
they
to
are.
safety in our country, right? Like, that's what's going to be on TV. That's what you're going to go on court. You're going to try and justify a civil war to defend killing refugees. The last time you called for civil war, it was to defend enslaving people. So your
Right.
two calls for civil war in the history books will be, we wanted to keep our slaves and we wanted to murder immigrants.
Yep.
So good luck with that. Good
Pretty
luck
bad.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You know, and Texas has been talking about seceding from making, you know, forever. So
Only since
whatever.
they
Since I was a
became a
kid, I heard
state.
this whole thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, since they joined the union, I think.
But Biden is not going to be lured into some fucking conflict with the state of Texas. He's going to pursue legal means of enforcing the Supreme Court's order. I mean, Biden's not an idiot, and that's all it is. It's just they're just trying to bait Biden into making a mistake or doing something stupid.
He'll play it the way Eisenhower played it with integration, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be fine.
He could you know, it's just it's interesting stuff.
Interesting it'll be for sure, but yikes.
Running out of time. Let's see. I do want to let's quickly so UAW, a couple other stories. UAW endorses Biden. That's amazing. I'm not going to play his clips, but Union President Sean Fain just torching Donald Trump,
Yeah,
called him
that
a
was great.
scab. Said when he was president, he was trying to screw the working class. Just an incredible speech by Sean Fain. Maybe I'll put it in the for the Patreon people. Fox News lying. I want to close with this. Fox News lying. This is a perfect example of sort of the cringe sort of Fox News style disinformation. There was a viral clip of Biden speaking at a brewery in Wisconsin. Of course they only ever have 3-second clips, but it's a clip of Biden stumbling over his words that went viral on X, Twitter. Made it to Fox News. This is Fox and Friends. That first they play the clip and then listen to their like analysis of Biden stumbling over his
By
words.
the way, it used to make beer brewed here. It is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why it's called.
And the interesting thing, the soundbite we played of Joe Biden on our show, no teleprompter. Yesterday, a teleprompter.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, I think for so long people said these are gaffes. That's not a gaffe. He can't put together a sentence.
It's something.
And
Yeah,
it's
the
actually,
electronics are off.
That's exactly right.
The chip?
Right? Yeah, I mean,
They installed the
yeah,
chip.
like the electric wiring is not working.
Something's going wrong, and I actually feel bad for the president. I feel bad for the country that you don't have someone in the White House saying, this is not okay.
It was all over social media. People were saying, is he speaking a different language? Yeah. People are worried about his health
But
now.
he did.
People are worried about his health now. They were laughing. They're laughing at him.
They should never come into my fourth period, is all I'll say. Because I have moments like blah, 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 like the amount of times I've said to the kids, those were words, because I said something incomprehensible. It's just, you stumble over your words when you talk a lot. The president talks a lot. I talk a lot.
They're really digging into that. Biden has lost his goddamn mind thing, so much so that when you actually hear the speech in context, it makes them look like assholes. But Ainsley Earhart being like, they're laughing. She honestly thinks that like this campaign event attended by senators and governors, and there was all these dignitaries there. She honestly believes that the people in the crowd were like laughing at the president of the United States, like openly mocking him. They're
No.
oh man. So anyway, so the
They were
context of
laughing
this,
because he's funny.
yeah, because he was making a joke. The context of this is he's speaking at this brewery, the Earth Rider Brewery, that markets its use of water from the Great Lakes in the making of their beer. They're from Wisconsin. He's in Superior, Wisconsin, on Lake Superior at this brewery, talking about the need for clean drinking water and clean, making sure the water in the Great Lakes is not polluted. They're unveiling $1 billion in funding to repair this bridge that goes from Superior, Wisconsin to Duluth, Minnesota. That's what the event was about. He's making a joke about how good the beer is. He's saying the Great Lakes, the water in the Great Lakes, is used to make this fantastic beer from this brewery. So here's the full clip. Here's the full clip of that moment of Biden's
The money to
of
do it.
Biden's speech.
And that's on top of another $1 billion to clean up the Great Lakes, which provide drinking water for 20 million people. 20 million people. And by the way, it used to make the beer brewed here. It is used to make the brew beer in this refinery. Oh, Earth Rider, thanks for the Great Lakes. I wonder why it's coming. What we're doing in Wisconsin and Minnesota is just one piece of a much bigger story. Look, 14 million new jobs since I became president. 169 new jobs in Wisconsin. 200,000 in Minnesota. Nearly 800,000 new manufacturing jobs nationwide. Good paying jobs. And employment has been below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years. And it's even lower in Wisconsin and Minnesota, where it stands at 3.3 and 2.9% respectively. That's our economic plan. Invest in America, invest in American products, build in America. That's what we call Bidenomics.
So, great speech. I watched the whole thing. It was only about 25 minutes long. It was a great speech. Actually, it was like one of his better speeches I've heard. They hone in on this 3-second moment where he's stumbling over these words. He's making an impromptu off the cuff joke about how good the beer is because they use water from the Great Lakes.
I thought he was like intentionally pretending to be drunk was the joke. Like, this good beer, right? Like the way you would.
Saying thanks Earth Rider for the Great Lakes. Just making a joke. But that's the part that they clip, and they really double down on the Biden is crazy thing. Worried about his health now. I don't know. They really expect people to not go and just watch the entire segment. But I just thought that was an example of just a blatant example of them just it's one thing to be like, wow, I really don't understand what he was saying there. He's got that was a speech gaffe. It's another thing to just double down and say like the president is completely lost it and people are laughing at him during his speech.
Yeah, I think that's why they're doing it though, because they know Donald Trump is declining, right? Like there's no doubt about that. So they have to project that outward to point out that Biden is declining, at least as bad, right? That's probably going to be like, well, at least you can't hold it against Donald Trump because they're both that bad and Donald Trump is so much better in so many other ways, right? Like that's their best hope at this point. So they have to point to those moments because if you watch the whole speech, you can see that Biden does have it together. You can see that it is a good speech. You can see he does know what he's talking about. So they have to find those 3-second moments that sound silly or where you mumble over your words, like the 3-second moments that literally any kind of person in any moment can have. But it's all they're going to have to lean on. So they're going to have to highlight it because the more people see Biden speak, the more they're going to know that he's got it together, which is why I think they're trying to push AI Biden speeches of him stumbling. They're trying to highlight him stumbling because they want people to start doubting when they see him speaking coherently. Oh, is that real Biden or is that AI Biden? Because they know the truth. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to orchestrate the lie.
Yeah, totally. So interesting. Yeah. Interesting example of that, the way they the way they pick at that. And again, I wouldn't have a problem with him just being like, wow, he's not a very good speaker. What a stupid thing to say. But they're pushing this message, and you're right. It's because of its projection, because Donald Trump is declining. They're pushing this message that Biden. But it's just amazing. Like if you watch the whole speech, it's actually a really good speech. So I don't know, just picking out these moments.
But that's why they're using that moment, because they are going to hear people say, "Oh, this was a good speech by Biden," and then their viewers will have only seen that clip of it and be like, "Oh, that's what you think is a good speech? Oh, he must be terrible."
Well, these things go viral. Like that went viral on Twitter. I mean, that was everywhere. And then people don't question it, and then these things just build up in people's minds, and they're continuing this perception that like Biden can't put two sentences together. This is why we got to call that shit out, man, because it's no little thing. I mean, that kind of stuff just pisses me off, because it's not hard to watch the full. You could watch a 10-second clip of that and realize that that's completely full of shit.
Yeah.
So
Twitter's a cesspool, so what can we do?
We're just about out of time. Thanks everybody for joining us today on another episode of Just Buy Less Coffee. We're going to go into the deep dive now for subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, head on over to patreon.com/justbuylesscoffee, become a paid subscriber, get access to behind the scenes content, including the exclusive deep dive series. You're not going to want to miss it. Everybody loves our deep dives because Kathy and I just nerd out on these topics. We're going to be talking about the Iraq War, getting real intense and pissed off. So if you're not a subscriber, we will leave you here. Thank you everybody so much for your support of the show. Find the video content of the show on YouTube, on the Just Buy Less Coffee YouTube channel. For the audio only listeners, make sure you're clicking that download button to show us your support. It doesn't cost any money. And downloads are how we are ranked with other news and political podcasts. We love you guys so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Kathy, for a great conversation. And we will see everybody next time. You've been listening to Just Buy Less Coffee, answering the deeper questions of American politics, featuring Troy Matthews at Keep Troy Blue and Kathy Cannon at Cannon's Fodder. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X. All opinions are our own.